Thomas here with Much Props, going to give you another how-to video. Today we are taking a previously made template. I made this last video. It is a sturdy armor pauldron for my Fallout 4 cosplay. I kind of, after building it, thought this looked very much like a mask or a helmet already. Just put some eye holes there and you got a mask. But I thought that the cap on it could definitely go good on the back and on the front of my head, and I thought, well, just bridge the gap and I've got a custom helmet. So I'm going to take this template and make a new template to make a custom, we'll call it a space helmet. Let's get to building. As I was working on my pauldrons for my Fallout cosplay, I built one and put it on my head just to free up workspace, and realized it was a pretty perfect fit for a mask or a helmet. So I took the original template, added some lines for the smaller back portion, and just kind of went with it. My head is kind of large, so I decided to add a jawline on the bottom of the pauldron. Each template piece has the thickness of foam marked on it. Blue highlights mean inward angle cuts, red zigzags mean overlaps, and dotted lines mean that the part was too big to fit on a normal sheet of paper, so tape it together before you trace. All this is laid out for you on the cover sheet of the template. Here I am heat forming the area that needs to have a little bit of a rounded angle to it. Assembly is pretty simple. Just close up the darts on each side, then attach them down the middle. The longer piece you see here first is for the front, and the shorter pieces are for the back. If you have a small head, attaching these directly to each other would probably work, but for a big old head like mine, you kind of need that middle extender that you'll see here in a little bit. I drew a little inspiration for the helmet from Iron Giant. I like the way his jaw hinged and the fin on the top of his head. So the jaw consists of three main parts. The front and the bottom were too large to fit on a piece of paper, so I had to divide them up. I wanted this to be a snug fit, so my connector needed to be thin but still have the strength to it. So this red foam you see here is Wet the Foam from Cosplay Apprentice. It's a high density foam that is pretty good for this job here. I also used it on the strapping for my pauldrons for the Fallout armor build. You should check it out. Links on my Amazon affiliates page if you're interested in purchasing it. To keep it even, I attached it in the middle and worked my way to the sides. To adjust it to fit your head better, stick the base build on your head, then hold the jaw up to your chin centered. Have a friend trace the jaw where it sits on the base. I did it by myself, so it was a little bit trickier getting it just right. The mohawk fin starts at the top of the front plate and goes all the way down to the jaw. If you have to adjust the jaw height, you may have to trim off a little bit to make it fit properly. To add some detail to the forehead and cover up some seam lines, I added these panels. I took a round stone bit and made some cool indents, added some faux rivets with a sanding drum pulled out a little, and then heat formed it to fit the rounded surface. I got the idea from looking at some tactical soldier helmets. I added a vent to the back to cover up more of that middle seam line. It isn't in the template, I just kind of freehanded it. All it is a strip of 1/2 inch 8mm foam cut with a 45 angle on one side. Then the slats were just thin strips of 4mm EVA foam with a 45-degree angle cut that then gets glued so that it flares off of the helmet. To mix up some old helmet design to this futuristic helmet, I went with this vented holes for my visibility in the front. It's kind of similar to what you would see on jousting helmets back in the Middle Ages. When I used my wood burner, I wear a respirator and I turn on a vent fan that sits just to the right of my camera. You don't want to breathe in these fumes. Added a bolt for a little bit more of interest on the jaw. It's kind of another nod to the Iron Giant. I wanted to add something on top of the red foam just to make it stand out, and I ended up making these vent pipes out of some 24mm and 18mm EVA dowels. Originally I intended for them to have wires coming out of them, but by the time I had it all assembled I kind of thought it wasn't really necessary and it looked kind of crowded. Two coats of Plasti-Dip. After dozens of videos, I realized that I kind of gravitate towards the heavily weathered, just rust look on a lot of my builds. So I asked my wife for some color ideas and she picked out this copper and metallic green base coat. So I just kind of ran with it. It's a Plat Effects Armor Metallic. They get great coverage. They're flexible, which means they're perfect for cosplay paint jobs. I wanted to add another layer of detail to the paint job, so I just took some metallic acrylic paint pens and added some stripes. To keep it relatively straight, I used some painter's tape and marked off some areas. For the green area, I just freehanded some wavy lines in gold. And we are finished. Here is the end result. I definitely think it's a lot more unique than any other helmet I've probably made on the channel. It definitely comes from a different place than most of them start out at. I asked my wife what colors I should use for this, and she gave me the copper and metallic green idea, and I kind of just ran with it. After I got done painting it in the base colors, I kind of thought that there were some areas that were a bit too plain because of how much space with no details there were. So I went back and started adding lines to it just to kind of flavor it up a little bit. And this is the end result of it. It's definitely not what I intended when I started out, but I am pretty happy with how it looks. To me, it kind of has a How I Trained Your Dragon feel to it. To me, it reminds me of some of the dragons from that movie, but maybe you can tell me what you think of. Maybe you'll try and make one of these helmets yourselves and impress your friends with your ability to turn things that belong on other parts of your body into a part that covers your head, the most important part of your body. it's a bit weird. Maybe you'll get some.
Yay!
And inevitably, they're gonna ask you, how'd you make that? You can give them one of these, tell them, much props. It is definitely a snug fit for a fathead like me. But it does kind of look like an axe head, so go ahead and get a good headbutt in here.